Unfortunately, I feel like we have to talk about this topic. And if you follow us on YouTube and you watch our live streams, you've already seen us talk about this a few times, okay? But I feel like more information has come out where I feel like we need to talk about this again.
Yeah.
I am talking about the Titan sub with Oceangate.
Sad, tragic.
It
we
is.
followed along from the moment it broke, the story broke, until now. And it's been sad, eventful and sad.
We live stream 4 times a week, and I'm pretty sure we covered it on all 4 of those. It initially was listed as missing, or at least let out in the media on Sunday, and we covered it Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday when it was found. I put out a couple shorts. The reason why I want to bring this up, I put out a couple shorts talking about this, and I got multiple comments of people responding saying things like, okay, here's your tiny violin because these people were adults and they made a choice. And I'm shocked that people could think that, but maybe people don't have the same type of experience guiding other people through situations of contracts and legalities and choices that I do being a salesperson. I'm in sales, and there's been multiple times in my career where you manipulate something to look better than it is. And it doesn't even have to be in a negative way. It's not like you need to manipulate somebody. There's healthy manipulation where you're manipulating the visual and outline of how the services you're providing can benefit them so that they can see what you're talking about because they don't have as deep of an understanding into your product or services that you do. Or you could be used car salesman and manipulate the hell out of them, and you paid $500 for brand new paint on a car, but the engine is trashed underneath, and you don't let the customer see the engine before they buy it. And that's the type of manipulation we're talking about here. And that is the type of manipulation that I don't think people have a clear understanding of what happened here with this company. And that's why we need to bring it up.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Oceangate was founded in 2009, and the CEO was Stockton Rush, who was one of the people that actually died this recent Thursday. He was the pilot on the submarine, and I believe from everything that I've read, he went down every time the sub went down. He was the pilot here, okay? And I guess we can go into some of the stats around that. So the Titanic is 12,500 feet down, in between 12,500 and 13,000 feet down. What that equals to, right, in case you're in a different country, is it's 3,800 meters. Now, it's also 370 nautical miles or 2.37 linear miles, which that is long. That is long. And for anyone that doesn't understand, if you went to public school in the U.S., I'm pretty sure every public school had to run a mile in physical education at one point or another going through public school. Now, it was 2.5 of those, okay? Just imagine how far down that is. That is an insane distance down.
Underwater specifically. Yep. Now, to help you understand exactly what that does when you're down there, because ultimately what the water does is what ended up ending these people, unfortunately. But the water weight down there, or pressure, is 3,000 tons per square inch. Now, that is 400 times our normal
pounds per square inch. So essentially, you could assume if you're 200 pounds, if we're talking linear pressure here, like on top of you, if you're 200 pounds and we're down at the ocean or where the Titanic is, we would weigh 80,000 pounds. 80,000 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
That's insane.
That is crazy.
I just don't think a lot of people can understand the concept of what that pressure is. And I think that's really important when you're understanding exactly how they passed, right? Because at the very least, right, this is a situation where you have a giant pile of dog crap, but hey, at least there's like a pretty flower growing out of it. You know what I mean? That's honestly what this situation is here from all fronts that we're talking on.
It's like, here, eat shit, but I'll put a little bit of sprinkles on it for you.
Right.
Make it look pretty.
Right. 80,000 pounds is insane. That's heavier than most cars are. You're getting up into the amount of weight a house is at that point.
Yeah.
And that was the pressure down at that distance, at 2.5 miles down. Now, I've heard some people say that it is just as dangerous down at the Titanic, or treacherous, right? The surroundings with the pressure and everything. It's just as treacherous as going up into space. But I've also heard multiple people say that it's more. It's more.
Yeah, it's safer to go to space than go down that far in the ocean because of the pressure.
Correct. I believe, don't quote me on this, I was running out of time when I was doing research, but I believe if you're up in space, right, and you had like a hull breach or something like that, you wouldn't implode. It would suck everything out of there, which could cause more damage, but you also, depending on the vessel you're in, have the capability to
repair.
Not repair, but have different compartments to where, like, okay, you might have one compartment damage that got messed up and you could still be secure in another one, not down at the bottom of the ocean. Not down at the bottom of the ocean.
It just implodes, all of it. It
just implodes. And because it's so much pressure, the vessel's shape has to be taken into account, so that pressure is down there. So even if you had a vessel down there that was shaped like, you know, a space station, if one side went, all of it would go like dominoes. So, like, there is zero room for mistakes down there. Literally zero room for mistakes down there. Okay. So, and I intentionally spent a lot of time on that just because I think it helps people understand how concerning this was. Because really, this is a story about a rich man's ego.
Yes. His arrogance.
Yep. It was his ego and arrogance. And everything that I read said that that Stockton was one of those people that needed to be different from other people. He needed this idea that he was doing something new, something revolutionary, something that other people haven't done before. And the problem with that is that he put lives at risk in order to do that. So I beg the question that he was taking people down there to show off. That's the conclusion I've come to, right? Because he already has tons of money. There have already been submarines down there. Why put all these other people at risk that he's sold all these tickets to, everywhere from like $105,000 when it started all the way up to now $250,000 a seat? I think that he got off on being able to take people down there and then claim the rights that he was doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he was selling this high-class experience, this, adventure that nobody else in the world does, and there's a reason nobody else does it.
Yeah, well, other people do it. Other people do it.
Not in the same way, where he was cheapening it by making it a Disney ride, attraction, and in a backyard science project.
Yeah, kind of, yes. Now, you're right. You're onto something there, because the way that they repaired the sub at places, and the materials that they used were really, 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 really concerning, that never would have passed an actual professional checking it out and giving it the stamp of approval.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start working into this sub here. So. The sub had, by his definition, a state-of-the-art shape, and was created using state-of-the-art material. Now, one of his sales pitches or focuses was that this sub was built with the assistance and help of NASA, Washington State University, and Boeing. NASA, Boeing, and Washington State University, okay? So, none of that is true.
Of course it isn't.
That is not true.
Of course it isn't.
The best thing that I could find is maybe he reached out to somebody to look at other people's submarine blueprints, and maybe it was from these companies. I don't know. We haven't made the connection of that.
He just took little bits of tech from each company.
Yep. One thing to remember here is this story's very new. So we're recording on Friday when this happened on Thursday. And that's also interesting, because I feel like I have a lot of information here. And if we're able to gather a lot of information in less than 24 hours since this thing is going on, imagine what's going to happen when they actually start looking into this. Investigators actually start looking into this.
Because they're talking about some kind of like black box type thing to see exactly where the malfunction was. I don't know if that is actually possible, to be honest.
I couldn't find anything saying that they were going to be able to recover anything like that. And honestly, I couldn't even find verification if there is one. So, and I did look for that. So one of my flags that I want to highlight here is, right now, the mainstream news media is making a really big deal about this PlayStation controller. And you said it on stream, and I think it's really important in these situations to know what we're talking about.
It's an Xbox controller.
Well, it wasn't any of those things. It was a controller that is industry standard for these types of submarines and vessels. They are used up in the air. They are used down in the water. It is a completely normal thing. I believe that the mainstream media is using that because it is an easy thing for people to connect an image with, to minimize the value. But it is completely normal. We need to be focusing on the real problems here, and that is not one of the real problems.
The Xbox controller is the least of my concerns with this sub. As soon as you look at it and see a picture of it, like, there are glaring concerns that are way worse than that, and that there's nothing even wrong with that. They use these controllers on
everything.
Military ships.
On everything.
Like, this is normal.
Yep, absolutely. Now, so per the company, this sub was marked as safe. They literally marked it as safe. They made it look like it was certified.
Oh, the company.
Yep. It has never been certified. It has never gone through the industry standards of certification for this submarine. It has never had a single person come out and look at it, okay? The website said it was a combination of groundbreaking engineering and off-the-shelf technology. Off the shelf is true because we have confirmation that there are multiple parts on here that could be bought at hardware stores or places like Camping World, things that are used on RVs, okay? The metal bars that were attached underneath it. I found statements that said in order to detach components of this vessel when they got down to a certain depth of like 500 feet, everybody had to move to one side of the vessel to make it rock and detach it. Like, this is what these people were dealing with. Now, let me tell you, that is not industry standard. That is not how any other submarine works out there. Can you imagine the military being like, sure, all right, boys, we're at 500 feet.
Run to that
Everyone
side.
get to the left side. Ready, go. Now the other side. Ready, go.
No.
It's...
Dude, they had
I
to
would lose my
literally make
mind.
the passengers rock to the side?
Yes,
Are you
they did.
kidding me?
Yes, they did.
I would be like, take me back up, bro. This does not feel right.
Yes, they did.
This is messed up.
Yep. And the sub itself, okay, the pressure chamber, which was, according to the CEO, Stockton, was his baby. That is what was like leading edge technology, which that's the thing that failed here, okay?
Yep.
So it was made with carbon fiber and titanium, which that is along industry standards. However, this is a really important factor here because we don't know where it buckled, where it broke, where it gave. You know this cap on the front, and I'll be putting pictures here as you guys will see, but the metal cap on the front, you know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
with the porthole window?
Yep.
That was rated for 4,000 feet.
No.
Yep. That was a pre-made item for this use, rated for 4,000 feet underwater. Reminder, the Titanic is 13. So that it was rated for 1/3 of what they were putting it into. Yep. So somebody I was watching online, I really like his content. Let me see if I wrote it down. Yeah, Harsh Reality YouTube channel. This guy's a European. He's super funny. I like his stuff. But he said it best where he said every single time they went down, they were gambling, like flipping a coin,
Yep.
you know? And after I heard that the front of that's only rated for 1/3 of the depth that they're going down. And you need to remember that every 100 feet they go down gets exponentially more serious with the pounds per square inch factor as they go down, okay? They were literally gambling, okay? He every time that went down to Titanic, they got lucky. It was luck. Looking at this, I do not believe there was a flaw in the submarine. I am blown away that it didn't happen sooner.
Absolutely.
This thing was not rated for any of this, okay? Now, after seeing the pictures and everything, I'm assuming you guys are similarly aligned to me, and you can quote me on this too and go check, but the first night that we covered this thing on stream, I pulled up a picture and my immediate reaction was like, oh no. Hell no. I would not get in that for 100 feet.
And you're like an adrenaline junkie. So for you to see that immediately, I was like, because I don't know nothing about nothing when it comes to this stuff. So I looked at it and I was kind of like, well, it looks kind of cool. And I can see where somebody who doesn't know anything could look at that and be salesmaned by him. Like it's this high-tech new thing. Because it doesn't look anything like a submarine you'd see from a military. I could see being salesmaned into this adventure. And the Titanic is such a romantic story. It's such a, it's been romanticized. It's horrible. It's tragic.
You know, he's married, so his wife is the relative of
The
two
richest-
people that died on the Titanic.
Yeah, and they sacrificed their places on a lifeboat, and they were two of the wealthiest people, the couple, to die on the Titanic. And I could see it. I could see, like, getting excited and thinking, I'm going to see the Titanic, and, like, being salesman. I think
That's why I
for
keep
people to
saying
put
this.
all the blame on them, finding out, especially after the statements he made, at first I had kind of little sympathy because I'm like, yeah, you're signing waivers, like he's telling you these are all the ways you can die, but at the same time, he's saying this is the safest place on Earth. You're safer in here than you are on land.
Yep.
But in the same respect, making statements that safety regulations stifle innovation, and he hates safety regulations,
Yep.
and he thinks companies focus too much on passenger safety than other things. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he thinks they focus too much on passenger safety.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, and that's
like
what I was
number
getting
one.
to. Also, is like helping you guys understand what was going on. So going back to what we were talking about, it was the pressure vessel was made with carbon fiber and titanium, and he would tell people that it was made intentionally so that all the components could fail, but the chamber would always be safe no matter what. Because when you look at this thing, where I was going with that is you can look at it and see why someone would have concerns.
Yeah.
It looks like a science project. It looks like, something that you would make in a garage, okay? Well, he would tell people that that was intentional so that it could be repaired quickly on the go, that the bread and butter is the chamber, and everything else could fail. Everything could fail, and they would always be safe because that chamber is so important, and it had safety features on it that would get them back to the surface, which we found out was not very true. There were supposedly 5 safety features on that, and none of them were getting them back to the surface. So before people would go on here, they would sign a waiver of liability, releasing the company completely of liability if something goes wrong. But there are firsthand account statements saying that he would be talking to these people while they were signing these documents and explaining to them that he was going down with them and that it's the safest place on Earth. Anything else could be going on up at the surface and on Earth, and they would be safe no matter what due to this compression chamber, which, again, the compression chamber is what failed in this situation. He went on live TV and told CBS News that if you don't want to be safe in life, then you don't get out of bed. Otherwise, it's all about pushing boundaries. He spoke directly to the Smithsonian, and that's where he was saying what you were talking about with regulations were an anathema to innovation, or a dislike of innovation. It's an extreme dislike of innovation, that the submarine industry focused too much on people and not enough with innovation. Which I just need to remind you that he was selling tickets here, okay? And this was experimental. And that's where my big issue is with all of this. If you want to build something in your garage and go down to the Titanic or wherever you want to go, you have that right. That is 100% your right to do it. If you want to take people down there, then there needs to be regulations and additional accountability brought on to check it out to find out if it's safe. It is not okay, in my opinion, to have people sign their life away and a liability that releases a company of all legal mishaps or anything that could happen, while simultaneously telling them that nothing could happen. I'm going with you. This is the safest place on Earth. Like,
and
that's just not
evading regulations.
Yep.
At the same time.
Yep. So this is what he would do while people were being bought into this thing. There are firsthand accounts of people. There was a guy that's friends with, what is it, Branson? The owner of Virgin.
Virgin?
Yeah, Virgin Mobile, and now he's in space. He owns the islands, whatever. I don't know. A really huge, like, mogul of business, okay? His friend signed up for this thing, went to
watch it be tested in the Caribbean and said that the tests were a joke, like nowhere near the same comparison of depth that they were going to be going to in Titanic. And then he went back and saw the actual vessel they were going to go in and immediately backed out of it. Immediately backed out of it.
I mean, people raise concerns on
Yep.
several occasions about this thing, and he every time defended it and continued on.
Yep. So with all that being said, one of the people that you're talking about is an engineer who Stockton Rush hired himself, and he brought him on to work on Titan. It was January of 2018, and the engineering team was just about to hand over the craft to a new crew, and one of the engineers knew that something was wrong here, a guy named David Lockridge. He currently has an open case right now, a legal case right now with Oceangate, because he put together this big long document explaining all the issues there were and how he didn't feel safe or putting a stamp of approval to have people come on that sub. And Oceangate let him go and then proceeded to tell people that had knowledge of the industry that this guy wasn't happy with his job and he was trying to get fired. And this guy took them to court, with rightfully so.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Yep. And multiple people in the industry had reached out to him to check this sub out, and he beat around the bush and would not let anybody come check this submarine out. Major issues here.
Yeah, and only until somebody raised concerns about the waiver and not having it looked at did he actually include all of the stuff in the waiver that is currently in it. Like,
Yep.
it was way less inclusive and honest until somebody raised concerns.
Yep.
So, I mean, come on, that's even scarier. He had to be called out to actually put, like, real shit in the waiver. Like, these are all the ways you can die. This is experimental. Like, none of that was in it before.
Yeah, and to me, again, it doesn't matter because this was experimental, and this shows that we have a major problem with some of these industries, like I said. And the designers were cutting corners. They were putting things on here from places like Camping World that can't be okay, you know what I mean? And one of the people's firsthand accounts during the dive, one of the parts to the sub fell off, and they reattached it with zip ties. Like, these were the kind of lengths they were going to. This is the insanity here of what was going on.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's super shady that you have somebody that was working directly on the sub raise concerns and then they got fired. Like, this is proof. This is a history and proof that this company was beating around the bush. They were intentionally, this shows the intent that they were trying to navigate away from any industry standard regulations, any of OSHA checks, anything, and literally anything. They didn't have anybody come check any of it. No. And that's the concern here, while simultaneously selling tickets for $250,000, where ultimately 4 paying customers lost their lives.
Including a 19-year-old who was on that ship allegedly to please his father.
Yeah.
A billionaire.
This is really sad, and it just begs the question, what do we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because in my opinion here, these people were conned into taking their seat on here.
I agree.
This man was egotistical, he was self-centered, he had a hunger and a need to be recognized as somebody greater than, I guess, the rest of the humans on. I have no idea, but he sounds psychotic to me, and it sounds like his psychotic nature ultimately led 4 additional people to die with him, and that's not okay. We need to create something, some kind of standard that says that going forward, companies can't use paying customers as test test dummies.
Well, yeah, and the only reason he could get away with this is because it was in the ocean, because it was international waters.
Yeah.
Had this been on, U.S. territory, like on our lands, he couldn't have done this. But that begs the question: how do we put regulations on something that's going on not on our land, that's in international territory? And I think that is, if you are a U.S. based business, there are U.S. safety regulations. If you're a Canadian business, there are Canadian safety regulations. If you are taking paying customers or people into international waters, you have to abide by these safety regulations.
Yeah. And
if you're leaving our land, it better be on a vessel that isn't doomed to sink.
I actually think that would be an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Because, so one of the topics I saw in here was that it said there are 13 total vessels in the world that were capable of going down to those depths. This was the only one out of those 13 that were not certified. He was literally the one-off situation that got around the certifications, that didn't follow the industry standard, that took risks and cut corners in a way that nobody else had.
Very
and there
intentionally.
Have been scientists that have gone down there. We watched that story about that one scientist that got stuck under the rudder or the propeller on the Titanic in a different sub, a 3-man sub. So other submarines have been doing this, but the difference there is that they were certified. They followed the industry standards. They didn't go down until multiple experts checked that thing out to make sure that it was as safe as can possibly be. Now, there's not 100% safe down there because of how treacherous it is that far down under the water. But they were as safe as they could be per the industry standards, and nobody else has had an issue going down there except for this one sub. And remember, that nose cap was only rated for 4,000 feet.
That is crazy.
It was a literal gamble is what he was doing. So one thing I did want to touch on, and we touched on the stream, is to help you guys understand, like what I was explaining about the pressure. Understanding all that with the 80,000 pounds worth of pressure on you, these people died immediately.
They were disintegrated.
Disintegrated immediately. So, like, what I mean is everything would be fine, and hundreds of a seconds later, they would be gone, okay? It happened so fast that they couldn't even think, oh, shoot, nothing. It was light, black, just like that. So fast, hundredths of a second, it was done. So,
there's no bodies to recover.
Yep, there are no bodies to recover because when you're down at that pressure, we're actually pretty soft, and they were ripped apart. And I might put on here the cup of one of the videos that we watched, just a styrofoam cup that they went down to those distances, and it literally pressed out all of the air and shrunk this cup to 1/10 of what it normally is, and that's just simply from the pressure, and it pushed out 100% of the air, everything. Like, that cup couldn't go scientifically smaller. It was as small as it could possibly get. So they at least died a very peaceful, easy way of going. It just sucks
they didn't
because
feel any
they didn't.
pain or fear.
Yep, it sucks because they didn't need to. Now, so I mean, I hope all the families are doing okay here because this is such an awful topic and situation. And I'll post a picture of them too, but I just feel like these people didn't need to lose their lives.
No, they didn't need to. It's horrible.
It's a problem.
And I think people don't give enough weight to manipulation and sales tactics. Like, when you're saying, well, they signed the waiver, they made their adult decision. I mean, people can be coerced. I don't know why we don't think of that. Like, with human trafficking, people think you have to grab them and kidnap them and put them in chains. No, it can be all coercion.
Yeah.
All of it can just be coercion. And then you don't even realize you're not actually making your own educated choice. You have been manipulated and lied to, so you couldn't make your own educated choice.
Yeah, you didn't have all the facts. You didn't have a good understanding. Because look, like...
you didn't have an option to make a better choice.
Yeah, and these people also have no experience and knowledge of what industry standard is. So they're taking a submarine and being told that it's the greatest thing on Earth that can go down to this depth, and they have no real life comparison to understand that that's not how a submarine should look. That's not how a submarine company should work and function. So they just didn't know any other way in this situation. So they didn't make their adult decision. If they made an adult decision, they would have the pros and cons, what the industry standard is, and the expectations of the mission, the details of the craft, the overall weights and pounds per square inch that the craft can handle. Like, all these things are really important, and going down to a depth of that far where you have the possibility of losing your life, I would expect all of these things to be shared with these people. You know, when you go skydiving, I'm pretty sure you take a 12-hour class before you go skydiving, and you have to watch videos, you have to train, you have to do all this stuff. I'm curious if they even did anything like that before they went on this, you know, or how much information they were actually given. So
that's super
it is
important.
A problem, though.
Yeah, this is, I think, more dangerous than skydiving in the way that he was doing it.
Yeah.
And there should have absolutely been extensive education. Like, you should have had to sit there and learn about what you're doing, the implications of this, the risk factors of this, all of it.
Yeah.
You should be given that information.
Yeah, no, I agree. So there's one other thing here that I wanted to cover. So while I was doing my research, I found out that there's information being spread around right now that the U.S. Navy actually knew that this device imploded, which is interesting, okay? And I have some thoughts of my own on this. So everyone's jumping to conclusions right now, trying to point the finger at the guy who was running the search and rescue, because apparently the military alerted the head guy who was running it. And what was his title called again?
Isn't it like lieutenant or something?
No, it was like search. It was...
Yeah, they said they picked up on something.
Oh, incident commander. So they told the incident commander, the guy that you saw on TV when they were talking about, you know, what they found with the sub.
Press conference?
Yep.
Yeah.
And... but here's the thing. So everyone's throwing blame at him. I look at this situation, and yes, they picked up an acoustic sound that aligned with what they believe that sub would sound like imploding, okay? And they let him know that, hey, we picked up this sound, and we just want to let you know that we believe that it could be your sub, since it lines up with when they lost connection and everything. And everyone is saying that they should have alerted the public right then and there.
No.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's enough evidence. I think that people need to put themselves in the shoes of the family members of the victims in this situation, because imagine having someone come to you and saying, hey, we just want to let you know that on Sunday, around the time that we lost connection with them, communication connection, the U.S. military, the U.S. Navy picked up an acoustic sound that could be the submarine imploding, but we aren't sure. Like,
yeah, they need confirmation. Why would they make a public statement saying that when they have no confirmation? Like, it's evidence-based. Like, they're going about this looking for evidence. They're investigating.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think that they could have said anything in this situation.
It wouldn't have been beneficial.
And maybe those speakers, those acoustic speakers, are top secret also. It doesn't matter.
No.
If anything, I am
really proud of the performance that the Navy heard it on Sunday and got the information over to him that Sunday. That is not common. That is actually extraordinary because the military normally sits on these things forever, having to get tons and tons and tons of approval, okay? This let them know the search area. I think this is the reason they brought in those increased depth vessels to be able to go down that far, which ultimately found the cone.
Yep.
So, but yeah, rest in peace. We are with you for the families that lost somebody. That really sucks. I hope that this company is taken to court. I believe they are 100% liable in this situation. I believe that this company needs to be held accountable. And you got to remember, this is still a company. Even though the CEO and the person who led it was in that sub too, it doesn't change that they can still bring together a lawsuit for this company. Absolutely. Of wrongdoing. There were multiple layers of people who probably followed the CEO in this. So these families deserve something. You know, it's not necessarily talking about a payout. Maybe it's a change in the law. Maybe it's, I have no idea, but they deserve something.
Yeah, they deserve justice in some way to make sure it won't happen to anyone else. Like, somebody lost a father, a husband, a child, like a friend. It matters. Even if they were billionaires, you know, and rich, it doesn't matter. Their lives still have value. Which, you know, let us know what you think. Did you learn anything about the sub? Did we change your mind at all?
Yeah.
Because these details are important. I think they're super important when understanding the gravity of something like this. Mm-hmm. And I hope that this now sets precedent for the future, that people won't repeat this mistake and allow themselves to be salesmen into an extraordinary adventure that is really just a flip of a coin and you could be dead.
Yeah, it was too much risk here.
Yeah.
And not enough oversight. There needs to be oversight in these situations, in these companies. So, and high five to the U.S. military. I'm glad that they were able to hear no, I'm talking about the Navy. I'm glad they were able to hear the sounds, the acoustic sounds and the acoustic data and get it over there the same day that it happened. I bet that increased the success of this and decreased the amount of time that it took. So I'm just not willing to give the Navy a hard time in this situation. I don't think they did anything wrong. So
no, I don't think they did either, but high five to the Coast Guard and the people who were out there searching, like putting in hard work. They really rallied together and, you know, did a good job.
Yeah.